Go. How's everybody doing today, Mr. John?
I fucking love that song, man. It's like very Seinfeldish and
like, got the funk,
yeah,
like
man.
old Greg found the funk.
What's his name? The funky monkey Ben Askren. You could use that shit. You could use that shit, my
got
friend.
all the funk. You got all the funk in there, dude.
Oh yeah, he got funked last week.
Oh, he sure did. He sure did.
I forgot that happened on the same night.
Well, no, it was the week before. And then because we talked about it last week.
It was. Wasn't it the same night?
No, because we talked about it last week, and then because last week we had to pre-record, and we didn't get to talk about the UFC fights because that happened later in the night after we pre-recorded last week's podcast, because we had to pre-record last week. So last week we had the week before was Ben Askren and Jake Paul and the whole shit show, and we had a whole conversation about that.
We did
the shit show, right? Very entertaining shit show, but a shit show nonetheless, right?
Actually, I wanted to ask, because I know last week we did the pre-record. Did you see the intro?
Of what? Of the Jake Paul thing?
Of last week's episode of our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for Sean to send me some more footage. I got some footage of you from your trip.
My trip.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Good morning, DD214.
Good morning. I think
What'd you get, Sean? What'd you get?
Just a Coke.
Just a Coke. Just a Coke. So what I was getting ready to tell you is, so this beer is called Walters, right? And apparently it was like a local beer to Pueblo, Colorado, the home of heroes, Pueblo, Colorado. And I recently found out that for many years it kind of went out of business and they just stopped making it. And then later on, some Pueblo locals wanted to bring it back. And it took them like a lot of research, and they tracked down this family in New York of all places that had the apparently it was like no shit. It took them like research and time. They got the recipe from the family. They make Walters now, but it's a chili beer. This is a chili beer. I've had it on here before, and when I picked it up kind of like on a fluke. It was at the Loaf and Jug, like the local gas station, right? I kind of picked it up on a fluke, and you would think that chili beer wouldn't be like that good, right? But when I taste it, it's like there's just a little hint of spice, and it's at the very end. Like when you swallow the beer, it's like at the very end. It's right in the back of your throat, like when you swallow the homies goodnight, same deal, right? And I know Sean loves that, dude. And so
it's
really
the only way. It's the only.
I'm never letting that go, dude. Like, it's like everybody else wants to kiss the homies goodnight. Like, motherfucker, I swallow. Okay, so don't come shit talking me, dude.
And my mom just came in.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry. I'm 40 years old, but I never grew up. I apologize. I still love you. Still love you, Ma.
Oh man, I wonder how many people are going to church right now.
This is our church. This is our church, dude. So back to the UFC. So because we pre-recorded last week, we missed talking about the fights last weekend, and I remember we had discussed this, I think, internally on messages, but I thought for sure, what's her name? The Chinese fighter, Zhang.
Wei.
What's her name?
No, Wei Ling is from fucking.
No, it starts with a Z. It starts with a Z.
Zhang,
it's like
Zhang Weili.
Okay. So I thought she was going to win, but I was hoping in my heart of hearts that Thug Rose would pull something off, and by God, did she? By God, like I was so
beautiful hype.
Dude, when she started crying after she won, dude, like I was like,
My throat was getting all tight, man.
Like she did it. She did it. She did it. Like, so happy for that young lady. So happy for that young lady, dude. Yeah. Oh my God, dude.
Is it? And she won this back. As the stats say, she's the first female to win a title back.
First female two-time strawweight champion.
Yes, and good for her. And good for her, because goddamn, like how happy to that. I would have bet the house on Zhang, right? Like I would have bet the house on her, and I'm glad I didn't, because my heart is happy because Rose Namajunas won. You know what I mean? Like that made me so happy. It made me almost as happy as I got sick earlier in the night watching Chris Weidman, do like this poor guy, like exactly what happened to Anderson Silva happened to him, and it was just like like just watching a leg just like fold over like that in just ways it's not supposed to go, and you're just like, So yeah.
But let's talk about how he figured out he had a broken leg.
Yeah, he tried to step on it.
He tried to stay upright like a normal being. No,
I'm good, man. I can do
that. That's some alpha shit, man. Like not even noticing that your whole shit is gone. Like he didn't even look down to even notice. Usually you'll see a fighter like glance down real quick and be like, okay, da. But this guy, he went back to fighting position, and
the same exact thing happened. And the same exact thing happened in his fight against Anderson Silva, but it was Anderson Silva that did it. And your body, when you a lot of times when you take a massive shock to the system, your body shuts down. Like those nerves, like you will not feel it. I've talked to guys that have been shot. I've talked to a couple of guys that are amputees, and when they lost their limbs, they didn't feel it at first. They did not feel it at first, and they didn't realize what had happened until they like looked down, and all of a sudden whatever was supposed to be there isn't fucking there anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's you're talking about traumatic injury. You hear it all the time in car accidents. Like I didn't feel anything at first, and then you spend the next 6 months in traction, and you're in a hospital bed or whatever. And it's like our bodies are amazing machines, man. They're amazing machines. Like
I got a Green Beret buddy that was blown up a bunch of times, but this particular time he was blown up. He was conscious the whole time because he was crossing over a canal, like those dry canals. Remember those?
Yes.
Jumping over right as an RPG came in, and it blew him through the air. And when he landed, he was under a tree trying to figure out what the fuck, like get his fucking shit together. And he looks up, and there's his leg in the tree.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's like, yep. Same, and he didn't know until he looked up and saw it, right? Like
he was the team medic, so obviously he tourniquets his leg and saves his fucking life.
Saves his own.
For second time, because like the previous month, I believe he was blown up and had to tourniquet his other leg, which he still has, but it was just fucked up. So he tourniqueted that one. got back to his team, and like the stupid, like you see in a movie where like, I got to get back to my boys, you know, like commandeered a fucking vehicle and that's actually what he did.
Right.
They even knew he would do that, and they put out at the motor pool, do not let this guy take a vehicle, because they knew what was going to happen. So he goes out and very first fucking mission blows his fucking leg off. I know I'm laughing, but like, you got to know the dude, man. He's
I get it. I get it. I get it.
Don't mind me. I'm paying attention. I'm just sharing the shit out of this thing into random ass Facebook groups right now. I'm probably gonna get kicked out of a few of them, but
hey, fuck it.
Hey, fuck it, man. Fuck it. So yeah. So
I don't need you.
So speaking of, while we're on UFC, there was an antitrust lawsuit with the UFC that started back in 2014, 7 years ago. A couple fighters are involved that people might know the names of: Brandon Vera, John Fitch, Kung Lee is like the original. Kung Lee is actually the original claimant. There were originally 7. Nate Corey was in there. He is not anymore. But I found a YouTube link last night, and it's about 10.5 minutes long. I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it to the comment section on our live feed right now. If you guys have a chance, watch this YouTube video. Watch this YouTube video when you have a chance, about 10.5 minutes long, but it explains everything in very plain language, what some of the legal terms mean, what everything kind of like involves as far as like what the fighters are alleging and what is actually going to happen, I guess, or what the UFC is kind of countering with. But a judge finally after 7 years is allowing this to move forward. And I thought that was very interesting because I know we've talked about UFC and their pay and their treatment of fighters on this podcast before, but it's really interesting. What are you seeing, John? What are you seeing?
This shit just made my jaw drop right now. It says here that the UFC could be forced to pay the fighters almost $5 billion each.
That's they go into detail on that in that video I just shared. So it's
holy shit.
The damages they're alleging are between 2010 and 2017.
Yep.
The original damages they're claiming are somewhere between 800 million and 1.2 billion. As part of this antitrust thing, if it goes all the way through and they win, you can get up to 3 times that, and that's where that 5 billion number comes from.
Yeah, and it says
it's
here,
like you can get 3 times that amount.
Yep,
you know,
and it all makes sense too because it says here that the plaintiff said that fighters are that they were deprived of 1.6 billion in pay because mixed martial arts lacks a competitive labor market.
That's correct, and that's what antitrust is. So, like, go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was about to ask you, like, what are they alleging? But I remember over the years, they were griping because they had no leverage as the fighter to really try to, get the medical that they needed. Because the only time they would get medical coverage is when they were under contract for a fight and immediately after.
Correct.
While they were on the payroll but didn't have a fight and didn't have any money coming in, they really didn't have any coverage for medical anything unless they already had it. And then UFC decided they were going to stop letting fighters get endorsements from places, and they got the endorsement from Reebok, and then everybody had uniforms.
That is correct. And so a lot of people think monopolies are illegal in the United States. They are actually not. So you can have a monopoly, but you cannot actively attempt to pursue a monopoly. And if you have a monopoly, there are certain rules that you have to follow, that are guidelines you have to follow if you have a monopoly. And part of the antitrust suit, and it's in this video that I shared, they consider having a 50% market share or above is considered kind of a monopoly. The UFC is somewhere up there. The fighters are alleging that the UFC is upwards of 90%.
Oh.
So if the law states that a 50% market share is considered a monopoly, the UFC is somewhere in like the 90th percentile of the market share. So that's like, and they're letting the lawsuit, go through. So this is going to be really interesting. It's going to be they're shaking up the game right now. And The UFC does the exact same thing that WWE, of all places, does. The UFC considers their fighters independent contractors, and that gets them out of a lot of stuff as far as like health benefits, stuff like that, like a normal business would have. They consider their fighters independent contractors, but it's like, how are they independent contractors when they're the only show in town, right? Same with professional wrestlers in WWE. How are they independent contractors when WWE is the only fucking show in town? You're not independent. You're a goddamn WWE superstar, right?
Well,
like
the times have changed. There are other players in the market now, but the biggest thing
with what money? With what money?
But the biggest,
right?
but there is a big difference though. Professional wrestlers, unless you're on a higher card, you don't have health insurance.
That's exactly the same thing.
And it's the exact same thing with UFC. If you're not a higher tier, you ain't got no health insurance. You got no one paying your hospital bills. Thank God for Weidman. He's got a good paycheck. He's been fighting for the UFC a long time. He was probably able to get his bills taken care of. He's been well. But when you look at a guy like I can't even tell you a fucking undercard guy name, but you look at oh yeah, I know that's part of the broadcast. Oh, it's not. Yeah, like I can't even name like an undercard fighter, but like maybe Sean O'Malley, is hitting that borderline where he doesn't have that health insurance, but has enough money to pay for his bills.
Right.
The whole combat sports world is crazy, especially there's a lot of, I guess, like unions that are fighting for these rights for these fighters. Especially MMA fighters. They've been fighting for this shit since the beginning.
Well, and again, it's all in the video. But when you talk about like the big four, baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, and you talk about like market shares and what the players associations, the players unions actually make, and what the players make compared to what UFC fighters make, it's ridiculous. Like it's way, the numbers are way down for the UFC fighters. Obviously, boxing is even above the big four. Boxers will typically make almost upwards of 60% of what the promoters make, as far as like profits. That's not crazy. That's why boxing is so.
That's not crazy.
It does not sound crazy. It does not sound crazy to me, and the reason is because the boxers are the ones in the fucking ring. So that does, like, they're the ones putting their asses on the line. I get with like team sports like hockey and baseball and football and basketball. I get with team sports, there's got to be a little bit more of a share because it's a team sport. But when you're an individual in a combat sport, it's your brain trauma. It's your life on the line, basically, in that ring. When your career is over, like, what are you going to do? I know Stipe Miocic, the former heavyweight champion, still holds down a part-time job as a volunteer firefighter in Cleveland, Ohio. Why? Why does the former heavyweight champion of the world need a fucking second job ever?
That's a volunteer job. I get the humbleness. I get the humbleness.
I do too, but it goes. When they took away the sponsorships, they're not allowing fighters to have sponsors outside of Reebok or Venom now. It's the UFC is just making all the money, and the fighters are getting fucked.
I gotta say,
it's really.
I gotta say, the new Venom uniforms are pretty cool, though.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I won't be spending any of my money on that shit.
I mean, I just might, because I didn't like the Reebok ones.
They were bad, and they were horrible too.
They were
about getting the stuff wrong or whatever. Like, there's a real good bit of video on YouTube about how Reebok kept spelling people's names wrong, on their uniform for that fight.
Yeah, and they gave Justin Gaethje a championship shorts once too.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
And like he got called out in the interview too, and he was like, oh.
Right.
I mean, at that point, I would think I'm the champion.
I love Justin Gage. Yeah, he's one of my favorite fighters. So is Sean O'Malley, by the way. I wish I could see more. He seems to be one of those fighters that's just going to keep getting injured, though, which is unfortunate.
He's the Derrick Rose of the UFC.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, before we move too far on, I really like Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall is the guy that checked the kick from wide. Uriah Hall has been plagued with stuff like this. Not as freaky as this, granted, but if you recall, his first big moment in the UFC was on The Ultimate Fighter. He did a spinning back kick and KO'd this, like, almost. It's like it was like this guy died. I mean, he was out cold. It was such a fast, clean, and brutal kick that guy just flatlined on the mat and was like out. And Uriah Hall was a really compassionate human being, and he was troubled deeply by the fact that this guy was waking up. And
when the dude woke up, he was moaning because his fucking jaw was broken. Like the dude got jaw broke. Like, yeah.
That's sort of been Uriah Hall's sort of curse, is that he comes in and own psychological state of mind has been his biggest enemy. And so sometimes he go up and he's a beast, and sometimes he shows up and you can see that he's struggling in his own fight, in his mind, while he's in the fight. You know, when he beat Anderson Silva, he broke down crying baby, and Anderson was like consoling him like he was his dad. You know, it was great. It was a good moment. But I mean, that's Uriah Hall. And the very first kick, very first strike in the Weidman fight, he checks the kick perfectly. So if you know anything about like fighting or sparring or martial arts or whatever, so when someone throws a kick at your leg, you lift your leg up and kind of turn it outward to check the kick. It hurts the person that kicks, but it also hurts you or whatever. But there's a really thick bone right below, at the top of the shin, below the knee. That's where it's real thick, and that ideally is where you want to deflect that kick from, because it hurts so bad. But he did it perfectly, just like Weidman did to Silva. He did it perfectly. Very first strike in the fight. Fight was over.
Yep.
And you can see it messed with Uriah Hall's head.
Yeah, that poor dude. Like I'm in the same boat as you. Like I feel bad for him. Like he's not fighting because he wants to hurt people. He's fighting because he's a legitimate martial artist and he's good at it. He's you know, an elite world-class fighter. But he keeps unintentionally hurting people. You know what I mean?
That's not him. He's such a respectful dude too. Like you know, you see him everywhere he is. He's just so humble, and he's shaking hands with people, and you know, bowing to them, and you know, things like that. You know, that's a big thing, and I think a lot of that energy shows in his fighting. You know,
it does.
You know, it really goes to show. I mean, even after the Weidman incident, he went right up to him.
Yeah.
He went right up to him, and he was just like, well, we're going to do this again, you know? I like that.
And big kudos to Weidman, because I don't know if you were paying attention in between, like, the shock or whatever, but when they found out Weidman on the gurney and they started wheeling him out, he put up the big thumbs up, which was great. But if you happen to look at his face, while he was doing that, he was in agony and still screaming. He was doing this to the fans, but his face was just contorted in the worst possible pain ever.
Respect.
He put up X-rays. He put his X-rays up, I think, on Twitter or something, and it's
bad.
Compound fracture, dude. Compound fracture, like straight, like both leg bones. Compound fracture. Like
I think my wife was gagging when it happened.
And also, Anderson put out a tweet for Weidman. You know, like a very tweet. He knew what was up.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's So, can we stop talking about massive bone breaks now?
Well, we could talk about this massive loss real quick before we get into OBL real quick. Fucking how many? I knew Usman was gonna win. I just didn't think he was gonna win the way he was gonna win.
Oh yeah, with against Masvidal.
That shit.
Dude, the picture of the night, it's like a still frame. But when he threw that shot and like there's all this sweat just like coming off of Masvidal's head, just like what a like that was like the shot heard around the world, dude. Like nobody survives that. Nobody survives that.
What it reminded me of immediately when I saw the replay, Do you remember on Mike Tyson's Punch Out when you got to fight Glass Joe or Glass Jaw or whatever that guy's name was? And you got to do this, and he's going cling, cling, cling.
Yeah.
It was that. It was like the boom. And incidentally, there's a guy I follow on YouTube called The Weasel, and he does the best breakdowns of the UFC fights of anybody I've seen. And he's very knowledgeable, and he sounds like a young kid. I'm sure he's not, but he sounds like it. And he never shows his face or anything. But he showed the only other time that Masvidal has been knocked out was the same exact thing. The guy,
what was the last time he got knocked out, right?
Oh, he was young.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago.
So the guy reached out to pull down the front hand, and came over with the cross and knocked him out the same exact way.
Yep, and just hit him right on the button. Just hit him right on the button. Like they call that the button. It's this little area right here between the top of your jaw, between the top of your jaw and your chin. There's a place right here where if you catch it just right, like you going down. Like,
and if you guys noticed at the press conference, he had 2 pizzas and a soda. So he had his own 2-piece and a soda. So he he was feeding on to that, but hey, respect to the guy. He took it like a man. He was just like I got caught,
I caught.
Well,
like,
he's a fighter. That's what I love about him. That's why him and Diaz had the bad motherfucker title.
Yeah.
Like that. There's a reason for that,
What do you guys think about Nick Diaz coming back?
They're trying to. So I want him to come back. He just turned down a fight because typical fucking UFC. They want to put him up against like some fucking young killer. The dude's fucking 37 years old and like he's smart. He was so smart to turn that fight. He's like, don't put Nick Diaz up against a young killer. Put him up against another aging fighter. Like make it a money fight. Make it a fucking sell pay-per-views. Put Nick Diaz up against somebody who's been around for a while, and make it more of a money fight and sell pay-per-views like that. Don't put Nick Diaz out there to get fucking crushed in the ring. Like nobody wants to see that. Like that was never his shtick anyways. Like I've never seen Nick Diaz get fucking knocked out.
Yeah,
and Nate Diaz, his little brother, has only been stopped by strikes once. So between the both Diaz brothers, they've only been stopped by strikes once.
Yeah.
And it's like it took me a long time to get over the Diaz brothers, but the longer I watched them and the more fights I saw them fight, it was like I had this like grudging respect where it's like they don't go down, like they keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming, whether they win or lose. They don't care. And I love it. I love that bulldog attitude. I might not like some of the I guess the flashy, cocky whatever. That ain't really me, but if you could back it up, right, which they do, and when you see a guy like Nick Diaz does not need to go in there and get knocked the fuck out. Put him up against somebody in his own, like, I guess, peer group, make a money fight, put him in a pay-per-view, sell some more pay-per-views because Nick Diaz is fighting again. But fucking UFC, dude, like they want to put him up against some like young killer, and it's like, fuck that. Like Nick Diaz is not going to be going for a belt anymore. It ain't going to happen. You know what I mean?
He's just here to do legacy fights.
He just wants to fight. Let the motherfucker fight. Put him up against somebody that he has like a fucking chance against. How about that? You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, come on.
If you want to see the greatest Nick Diaz fight, and this is just my opinion, it's early in his career. And it was one of the first times I ever saw Nick Diaz fight. He fought, this is a young Diaz. I think he was probably 20. He's been fighting for a long time.
Yes.
And it was also early UFC. But he fought a young Robbie Lawler.
Yep.
Who was just like always. Robbie Lawler nowadays is a really martial artist, but at the time he was just a knockout artist wrestler. And fought out of the Lt camp, which was just brutal. I may be wrong on that. I might be making shit up.
Robbie, I don't. It was either Top Team or AKA or fucking.
It might have been.
Give me a second. I'm looking it up right now. Give me a second. But continue with what you're saying. I knew you were gonna bring up that fight. So go ahead.
Everybody knew that Nick Diaz was a jiu-jitsu wizard. Everybody knew Robbie Lawler was a knockout artist, and so everybody knew how this fight was going to go. But Diaz was like, "Nope, I'm striking with this guy," and he knocked out Robbie Lawler on his feet. It was one of these weird knockouts where he hit him, and it wasn't even like this big, powerful shot. It was just a crisp, hard Nick Diaz shot. Yep. And Robbie Lawler literally stiffened up like this and just tipped over like a tree.
Yep.
With this weird look on his face. And it was unbelievable.
He hits hard.
I think it would be the first time you ever heard Joe Rogan lose his shit in the booth. You know, like
yep.
It was a while. It was back when Joe Rogan had hair.
yeah, it was.
When he was making ample money.
Yeah.
It was Miletich. Miletich. Yes, 2000 to 2013, he was with Miletich Fighting Systems. So yes, you were right. You're spot on, sir. Spot on, sir. Well done. So yeah,
sure.
and you just brought it up. You just made my point for me. Like, have Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz fight again.
Oh my God,
Diaz Lawler too.
Dude.
I would
Diaz
love
Lawler.
that,
See, I'm selling it. I'm selling it for you right now. There it is. Diaz Lawler too. Can you imagine that? Like the rematch, like almost 20 years later. Right,
Yeah.
like
It would work.
Shit.
It could work.
Holy shit!
It could work.
Holy shit! Yeah, that would.
You hear?
You don't need to put. Nick Diaz does not need to be put up against a fucking killer. Like, put him up against Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler's still a killer, but you know, Robbie Lawler's in the twilight of his career as well. So like, there it is.
Diaz is no gatekeeper. That's an insult to his career.
Oh, absolutely.
I've always regarded him and his brother both as like the villains, but I like what they do. I like that they're unstoppable in their approach. They're not like trying to lay back and count. Like they're coming at you, and everybody knows it.
Yep.
If you watch, oh man, I can't remember if it was Nick or Nate, but they fought Cowboy Cerrone, and Cerrone just didn't. He had no answer, and he got.
That was Nate.
Yeah, he got fucked up. There was so many punches that he got hit with in that fight.
Yep.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, well, and you know, 209, man, Stockton slap, dude. It's coming back around again, dude. It's coming back.
The very first fight that I ever saw any of those guys get dominated in was when Ben Henderson fought Nate Diaz, and he was picking them up and throwing them and tossing them, and like it was just like, oh my god, you know, like it was enjoyable because I'd always seen Nate be a bully on people, and I kind of didn't like him when he was younger. As he's gotten older, he's gotten more of a personality that I can appreciate as a grown man, you know.
Right. It's same. Like I remember the Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor, their first fight. Mm-hmm. I saw that was on that happened during my second tour in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. So we were watching it, you know, on AFN. You know, we were watching it. We got to see the fight, and when it was like everybody was so shocked that he just took Conor McGregor to town in that fight and just demolished him and choked him out, and freaking everybody was so shocked. And what was the first words out of his mouth?
I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, not surprised, motherfuckers. Right? Like
that was what won me over to Diaz. That was it. That moment,
dude.
He didn't say all this crazy shit. He didn't be like "fuck you" and all this. He was like, "I'm not surprised, motherfuckers." I'm like, that. He's a straight up G, and I love it.
It really is.
I love how he goes to like the open workouts with the joint already lit in his mouth.
Oh yeah.
He just shows up. He's just like, I'm here.
Zero fucks given, dude.
You know, you know, hey, I got to respect it. I like it, man. I probably would do the same thing too. Granted, I'd probably be the one getting arrested, but
there's a great video of you know how they'll do the cameo shots in between fight rounds and stuff. Yeah. Great video of him waiting until the camera gets on him, pulling out a blunt and lighting it up. And I was like, oh, I love this dude, man.
It's like you can't say anything to him and you can't say anything to Snoop Dogg.
No, you really can't. You really can't. Yeah. Like
so it's an exciting week. It's been 10 years since we killed Osama bin Laden.
Motherfucking Osama bin Laden is dead as fuck. Dead as fuck.
Operation Neptune Spear happened in the middle of the night, May 2nd, 2011.
Yep.
Moment.
Yep. Fuck that cocksucker. Fuck that cocksucker. You're dead. I'm pissing on your fucking grave. Whenever I fucking take a cruise, you know, I've never been on a cruise. You know, I'm not very close to the ocean, right? But when I take a cruise, I'm going to sneak out one night. I'm going to fucking piss over the side of the fucking deck just so I can piss on your fucking grave. You fucking piece of shit.
That's right. He's in
Like,
the ocean.
pouring
It's
out
in the fucking ocean. No, dude, no country was going to claim him. He was originally from fucking Saudi Arabia. He's actually, and really funny story, which a lot of people don't do they don't read their history. His family is still a very powerful and influential family as business people, right? Like, he went off to the side and got real extreme with everything, obviously, but yeah, like his family is a very powerful business family. And he left all that behind to go do his shit after he fought in the Soviet Afghan war. What's that?
So he was in the Mujahideen.
Yeah, he was. And then the Taliban let him stay in Afghanistan, and he did a lot of planning. He attacked a Navy ship in the 1990s called the USS Cole. 19 sailors died, and this is all pre 9/11. This is all before 9/11, and then obviously 9/11 happened. And he took full responsibility of that because it was fucking him and a bunch of his buddies fucking planning that shit out. And here we are fucking 20 years later, we're still in Afghanistan because of that cocksucker, and it's like, but you're dead, but you're fucking dead. So
you
fuck.
Want to blow your mind? Anybody that wants to take the time to do the research, this is fact, this is not conspiracy. The day the towers got hit, I believe it was like either the day before or the day of, the American government flew the Osama bin Laden family, the bin Laden, out of America because they're here. They're business people or whatever. They got the bin Ladens out of America.
It was the day of. It was the day of. So right after it happened, those were the only planes flying. They had grounded all air traffic in the United States for the first time in history.
Oh, it was crazy.
It was crazy. Like, it was very crazy.
Planes. God.
No planes. Growing up, I was in Tucson, Arizona at the time with an Air Force base right there. So all I saw was planes every day, and it was insane to not see air traffic in the skies the 3 or 4 days afterwards. And those were the only planes flying that day after they grounded all air traffic. The only planes that flew that day was the president and freaking the bin Laden family out of the country because they knew it was going to come right back. And the American public was rightfully so very fucking angry and pissed off. But just by virtue of having that name, they knew it was going to be very, very dangerous for that family to be in this country, basically.
Well,
so
I lived in Mesa, Arizona at the time, and there was this was a big story, but there was just a small gas station on the corner right by where I live, and some dumbass. The guy was a Sikh. Is that how they pronounce it, or Sikh?
Sikh.
Sikh. They wear the real tight turbans. And someone went in and shot him and killed him because they thought he was a Muslim.
Right. Yeah, that's the Sikh religion. I remember that as well. That's that was very unfortunate when bigotry takes the place of hard evidence and facts, right?
And that was just bigotry and fear.
Yes, that's all that was.
Yeah,
that's all that.
I grew up, I've told this story a few times on the show. I grew up right across the river from the towers, so like seeing it, tasting the sulfur and picking up the ashes from the ground. It's a fucked up memory, and we're talking about we're going into 20 years now since it's been 9/11.
Yep, this September will be 20 years.
Yeah, and then was it 1992? The basement of the World Trade Center got, or was it 93?
93.
Yeah,
it was 93.
And this was also this has been a manhunt going on for a while. So we're talking, and then we're even talking before that during the when was it the Russo-Afghan War?
Yeah,
is that I think that's when I think when a lot of this shit started popping off with him.
It did. Well, it did. He left Saudi Arabia and he went to go be part of the Mujahideen during the Soviet invasion and occupation of Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989. They called that Russia's Vietnam. They called that the Soviet Union's Vietnam. And the American, like the CIA, was very heavily involved there. We supplied the Mujahideen with weapons, Stinger missiles, like surface-to-air missiles, to shoot down Soviet helicopters. You're talking about a lot of stuff. We're talking about like global, socio-political stuff. Like these guys in these dark, smoke-filled rooms, war game and stuff, trying to play this chess match, this constant chess match. And when they home in on certain areas of the world, obviously those areas of the world suffer greatly. And the Afghan people, goddamn, man, like, God, they deserve a lot better than they've had it for the last 40 years. It's been 40 years since the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and they have known nothing but war pretty much since. They had the Soviet invasion. They went right into a civil war that ended in about 1995-ish, 1996. They had a few years of like relative peace, if you want to call it that, relative peace. And then 9/11 happened, and we moved in October of 2001, and we've been there ever since. So for the last 40 years, they've only had like 3 or 4 years of relative peace, but it was relative peace underneath Taliban rule, right? So even when it's horrifying. It's fucking, and they're already gearing up. I've been paying close attention to some news articles about Afghanistan. They're already gearing up for another civil war after we leave. So the Biden administration is looking at pulling out, and we only have a couple of thousand troops there right now. And when we pull out,
that's it.
There's people in the north. They back in the 90s they called it the Northern Alliance. That was the faction that was against the Taliban.
Yeah.
There are people in the north that are once again gearing up to
fight the
Taliban. Yeah,
as they should. To be honest.
As they fucking should. Like it's
we're gonna get the occasional American that will finish up their time in the U.S. military and probably end up going out there to fight alongside these people as well. It's happened before.
We saw it many times in Syria. There were plenty of American trained. Yep, plenty of American trained. We would go fight with the Kurds, and like you would call them mercenaries. I guess that's really all you can call them. They're mercenaries.
Exactly.
They were going there just to fight. They like fight. They like fighting. They like the battle, and they went over there to fight. And that's.
There's actually a really good show on. I think it's on History Channel. It's like a 6-part series about it. I have to figure out the title for it. I'll get to it. But it was a really good show. It was a 6-episode series, and they talked about these Americans who. One guy actually got medically discharged, and he was just like, I need to fight, and he ended up going to Syria. So it's very interesting, and I know this is going to be something that is going to continue to happen.
When you get the itch, man, when you get the itch, I'll tell you what, man, I said it several times on this podcast. I started my career as a mechanic, but when I went on my first deployment, I was a mechanic, but I was attached to combat engineers doing route clearance operations. So the guys that drive down the road in the big trucks, and they look for bombs. They look for roadside bombs, basically. And over the course of that year, my first deployment was a year-long deployment. Over the course of that year, I got the itch. I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it. Like, and it's like a, you talk about, you hear heroin addicts describe their addiction as chasing the dragon. And I've been chasing that dragon ever since 2011 when I went to Afghanistan the first time. And that's why I tried out for Special Forces a couple times. That's why I reclassed and went over to the infantry, so that I could have a better chance to go back. All I wanted after my first deployment was to go back. It was like this all-encompassing, hyper-focused vision in my head of just going back to Afghanistan. I wanted to go back to Afghanistan, and I got my wish like twice. I got to go back to Kandahar in 2016, and I went to Helmand Province in 2018. And it's one of those things where we, as veterans, we don't always talk about it as much, because some of the stuff, we get put on a pedestal sometimes as veterans, and but we don't always talk about the stuff that we don't like talking about, right? And some of the stuff is very uncomfortable to talk about, like the fact that I liked the feeling I got going on a mission. I liked rolling out the gate. I liked not knowing if I was going to live or die that day. I like that. It made me feel good. And it's not comfortable to talk about that. It's not the part that you hear in a lot of the war stories or a lot of the documentaries. You become like a fucking war junkie, and just the feeling that you get, like it makes you feel alive. And there were times when I had a couple of close calls I had at least one close call on all 3 of my tours. And you have these fucking close calls and you think you're going to fucking die. You literally like, this is it. Like, this is it. I'm fucking dead today. Today is the day. And then you live. And the come down, it's like a fucking drug. Like, I'm not going to say what I did or didn't do before my active duty service, but I lived, right? Like, I lived way before I was in the Army. I lived. I have a lot of experiences in life, right? But it's like a fucking drug. And I've never experienced a drug where the come down was so euphoric. Like, you're talking about being on cloud fucking 9, because I literally thought I was going to fucking die. And then I lived. And the come down, it was so euphoric, and just being on cloud 9 and just like, now I'm alive. Now I know I'm a fucking live. And there's no experience that compares to that. Like, I ride a roller coaster now with like a fucking stone face, because it's like, this doesn't compare. You know what I mean? Like, it's not exciting enough, right? Like, you put me 400 feet in the air and drop me down to like 6 feet off the ground. I'm just going to be like, okay. Like, I knew I was safe, right? Like, okay. Like, it's not the same anymore. Like, life really develops this really hazy shade of gray after you experience that. And all I wanted to do was go back, and I got my wish. I got to go 2 more times, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud to be able to do that. But I can understand why these guys want to go back to Syria or goddamn back to Afghanistan or Iraq just to get back into the fight, because that's where you feel alive. You just feel fucking alive,
Were you guys? So I joined the year after. Were you guys still in?
When?
During the announcement of Osama's death.
I was, but I was a month. I was in, but I was a month away from deploying. So I was at Fort Leonard Wood, and we left like a couple weeks later. So like we started traveling to Afghanistan in like late May, and we got there in June. We got there like I think we got there June 2nd. So like 10 years ago in about a month, I was in Afghanistan for the first time in my life. And like, it was about a month after he fucking died when I got there.
Did you with all that, did you have like a fire under your ass, like ready to go? Like, okay, we just killed Osama.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. Like, what's next? Like, like we got the head of the snake. Now we have to get the rest of the body. Like, I can only imagine the feeling that you guys had going out there, knowing that just shortly after, there was going to be fucking. It must have been. I can only imagine there must have been madness out there.
If you look back on some of the statistics, 2011 to 2012, that was when we had the most troops there. We flew into Kandahar. I wasn't stationed in Kandahar on that deployment, but we had to fly into Kandahar to take Chinooks out to our fucking FOB, which was way up north. So we did a lot of like FOB hopping in helicopters to get to our FOB. But at Kandahar at the time, Kandahar Airfield, we call it CAF, it was like a fucking small city. There's a thing in Kandahar called the Boardwalk. It had a fucking TGI Fridays on it, bros. There was a fucking TGI Fridays in Kandahar, Afghanistan, right?
That's where Bagram had Subway, Pizza Hut.
Yeah, and it was like there was like 30,000 people in Kandahar when we got there,
and everybody, just to give people an idea. So in the forward fire base, or the FOBs or whatever people want to call them,
combat outpost.
That's where the typically happens. And in these large sort of cities, the airfields, it's where a lot of the logistics happen. And people have weapons just because of protocol, but they're always on their backs, and their uniforms have like permanent dark spots from the oil of the weapon. That's how like they've never been and probably never will be outside the wire. They do a logistical job, which is extremely important. I'm not trying to diminish anybody's stuff, but like that life is different from the firebase life.
I still have I still have a pair of pants, a pair of Army pants, right? We call them bottoms, right? And I still have the first pair that I wore. I wore that pair every day. I washed it a couple times. We actually had laundry facilities at my small FOB I was at.
Oh, that's awesome.
We were lucky. We were very lucky. We were with, it was in a.
Oh, I washed my uniforms in a bucket.
There you go. I mean, it's one of those things, like, not all experiences are the same, right? And we were lucky to be on a FOB where we had they had these big giant bladders, and these bladders were filled with water. Right?
Water buffaloes.
Right? No, not a buffalo. No, I'm talking like imagine like a waterbed.
Oh, God.
Oh,
You guys
okay.
feel like it's like I'm talking, but these bladders are so big. When you take all the water out and you roll them up to move them, they weigh like a ton, like a literal, like they weigh over 1,000 pounds.
It's like a rubber and leather bag with like a net inside of it or something like that. Yep.
Giant.
Oh yeah.
Ginormous.
I've had to.
So
Yeah.
So the first fob I was on, it was an Italian fob, and there was about 200 Italian paratroopers, infantry paratroopers on this fob. And so we did have we had laundry facilities, we had hot and cold running water, thank God. But it was very kind of remote. And I wore this pair of pants until I couldn't wear it anymore. I still have it, and there's holes, like giant fucking holes. There's a hole in my pockets where I would keep an extra magazine. There's a hole where I was keeping my dip can. Like these pants are because I was a mechanic. I was on the ground all the time underneath trucks, working on stuff, going on mission. You know, we would go on mission, and I'd have to get out and fix the fucking whatever engineer truck broke down that fucking day. You know, like in the middle of fucking nowhere, Afghanistan, up in the north in RC West. You know, and I still have that pair of pants. Like I cherish those pants because they're so tore the fuck up, and it shows the work that we did. You know what I mean? Like those pants show the work that we did. Like we were out all the fucking time. Like, and those engineers that I served with, I still talk to a lot of them to this day. Like they're some of the greatest men I've ever known because it was just our platoon. We were very fortunate. We were kind of away from the flagpole. We didn't have anybody over us. It was our platoon sergeant and our PL, our lieutenant, were in charge of us, and that was it. It was our platoon. We were by ourselves, and then we'd get a fucking platoon sergeant. PL would they'd get an email, and they'd say, tomorrow, you're going out here. So we would fucking go out the gate, and we'd fucking do a route clearance mission, and we'd fucking go there, and then we'd turn around and we'd go back home. You know, and that was our fucking the first 6 months. You know, we changed fobs a couple times, but it wasn't 6. About the first 4 months I was there, that was the fob we were on, but it was remote. We were nowhere. We were in the middle of nowhere. Americans had like not even been seen there in a long time, you know, in certain parts that we did missions to. And I remember the engineers got really excited. It was a mission that as mechanics, we didn't always go on every mission, so we would rotate. So mechanics were on every mission, but not every mechanic went on every mission. So one of the missions that I missed, they went to a portion of Afghanistan where Americans had not been, like probably ever. And the engineers got so excited because when they were rolling through this one village, a fucking kid got on top of a building and he was wearing a Spider-Man suit. And the engineers got so excited. They were taking pictures because this kid had a Spider-Man suit. And he got on top of his house and was waving at the engineers as they were driving by because he was wearing a Spider-Man suit, right? Like, it was fucking badass, dude. Like, I fucking love that shit, dude. Like, if I could go on mission right fucking now, dude, I would fucking do it. Like,
I had some really good memories from Afghanistan.
I would fucking do it.
These really weird little moments, quirky little moments that like, stand out. I was in Afghanistan in OEF 4, so that was 03 to 04. So when Osama got killed, I had been out for 5 years. I got 5, and but I had this one instance where I was in just I don't even know if you would consider it an outpost or a fight. It was not far outside of Bagram. Sometimes when we were in Bagram, they would push us out to kind of like post, not at the towers, but outside. And I was just watching my little area. I was up high, and there's a big clearing, and you know, you should note, like from my vantage point, I could see a number of little Afghani dwellings that were like mud, you know, almost like cob, I guess. I don't know what they made them out of, but they didn't have roofs, you know. It was just like you could see the layout almost like you were playing a Sims game or something like that.
Oh, shit.
And they would shit in the corner of their room or something like that. But at the same time, and there was another one that had a partial roof that an Afghani was sleeping on the roof. He had a little straw rollout mattress thing that he slept on. But in the middle of all this shit, suddenly I see like people start gathering in this dirt ass field. And I'm starting, okay, because to me, that's a red flag. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I'm like calling the shit in on the fucking radio and going, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm seeing. Well, what happens is in the middle of nowhere in this fucking bullshit, poor ass fucking place where at the same time, all these Afghani men were lining up at a rock quarry in the hopes that they would get picked to bust fucking rocks all day. That's the state of like what was going on. They pull out fucking soccer goals and all these kids come out in uniforms, soccer uniforms, and start playing soccer. And it was the fucking crazy shit.
And they were probably good as hell too, right?
Huh?
They were probably good as hell too, right?
Oh my God, dude. Like it was insane. Like I was entertained watching the ball control. I mean, these were legit fucking soccer players, but in the middle of a place where they didn't even have a roof and they shit in their fucking house. They're wearing soccer. Granted, they didn't match. It wasn't like one team against the other, but like they had soccer uniforms, and they all came in their soccer uniforms, and they had gold, and you know, like they.
Did you see the? There was an Afghan kid who was a big Messi fan, and he had used a T-shirt and strips of trash to make a Messi uniform, a Messi soccer jersey.
I haven't seen it.
And
yeah,
well, fucking really Messi got a hold of that story. And he got a fucking actual jersey to this kid. I think he met the kid. I want to say he met the fucking kid. It was super cool, man. Like the Afghan people it's a beautiful people, beautiful culture, just like everybody else. They just want to be fucking left alone. They want to live their life.
They got the shit end of the stick.
They really fucking did. They really, really fucking did. And it's hard to put into words, you know, when you go there and you experience it and I've dined with Afghans and I've eaten their food.
Yes.
I've met some really I've been thanked 1,000 times for my service since I've been in for 11 years. The one that I remember the most and the one that means the most to me on my second tour, prior to us going to Kandahar, my second tour, we went there in February of 2016. In December of 2015, right outside of Kandahar airfield, the Taliban attacked a fucking school, and they shot the shit out of it, and the ANA and American forces went in and fucking took care of it or whatever, but the school was in fucking shambles. So while we were there, they were in the process of rebuilding it, right? Well, there was an Afghan engineer there, and when I say engineer, it's not like an army engineer, like an actual engineer, like somebody who builds buildings and shit, right? He had been schooled in Europe. He had gone to college in Europe, and me and him developed a rapport. I was pulling security while my higher ups were having meetings while they were rebuilding the school. I was pulling security, and me and this dude established a rapport. And he was actually one of the top dudes there, like rebuilding the school. Well, one day we started talking, and we sat down on this little ledge inside this schoolhouse. And I showed him a picture of my family. I showed him a picture of my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time, my two babies. You know, and I showed him like, well, this is my family, you know, whatever. And what really captured my imagination was he very carefully, like dude's like literally like looking around like this when he did it. Out of his pocket, he pulls out a picture of his wife, who was also going to college in Europe at the time. So she wasn't there at the time, but he showed me a picture of his wife, which in Afghan culture, that's a big no-no. And the fact that this dude had the balls, because we had established rapport, we were obviously friendly and we were friends at the time. He showed me a picture of his wife, and it meant so much to me. And then he said, "I'm glad you're here, and thank you for coming." Like, because all he wanted was a better country for his family.
Yeah.
And to have an Afghan tell me thank you meant way more, you know. And I'm not saying I appreciate it when people tell me thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me, you know. But to have a member of the country, like a local, tell me thank you meant so much more, because it gave me a sense of purpose that what I was doing was right, and that we were doing the right thing. We were rebuilding a fucking school that got shot up by a bunch of fucking cocksuckers who attacked a fucking school, period. Like they attacked a fucking school.
For no reason.
No, there is a reason. It's called terrorism. Like when the local populace is fucking scared to death, you have control. When people live their lives in fear, you control them. You know, fear is a fucking tactic that is used. It's a psychological tactic. and to shoot up a fucking school, and to have somebody coming in to rebuild it and have that person tell me that they appreciated that I was there while they were rebuilding it. Like it meant a lot. It really fucking meant a lot, like it's, again, like Sean said, it's like one of those, that memory like literally just popped in my head. Like it was like, I haven't thought about that in a long time. Like that dude was really, and he gave, they did another mission out there, and I was on a different mission that day, so I didn't go to the schoolhouse that day, but he gave my company commander a piece of, it's like block candy. It's got like kind of like a waxy texture to it, but it's candy. And it was wrapped in cellophane, and he gave it to my company commander, and he said, make sure Sergeant Campbell gets this. And so when they got back, the commander gave it to my LT, and my LT came and knocked on my hooch, because my mission had already been over that day for a while. So I was in my hooch. My LT comes up and knocks on the door, and I'm like, what's up, sir? What's going on? Like, can I help you? Right? My LT was cool, don't get me wrong. But he hands me this fucking block of candy, like Afghan candy. And he's like, that dude you were talking to last time wanted you to have this. And I never saw him again, because my mission set was a little bit different, and I was going to different places. And like our company was kind of spread out, basically. Like we were doing all of our missions in Kandahar for the most part were in pretty close proximity to Kandahar Airfield. And then we had a couple different other sets of missions that we did that were in Kandahar City, which is about, I don't know, about maybe 10 miles, 6 miles from where we were at on Kandahar Airfield. And, fuck, I haven't thought about this in a long time. That's crazy. And, yeah, and if Ann is still listening, the pants probably do still fit, because I always wore them baggy. The pants do still fit. I always wore them baggy, but I wouldn't get away with wearing those pants in public, put it that way, because they are ratted, and they are old, and they are full of holes. Like, so. So, yeah.
Oh, man. I
haven't thought about that shit in a long time, dude.
Good shit, man.
That must have been another, like, fire under your ass moment, too.
It really was, man. When you sign up to do something, you can tell yourself, you can fill yourself full of all the ideas, the hopes, the dreams, what you're doing. And I always like to bring up the fact that I didn't join until I was 29. So I joined very, very late. So I do not have the excuse of being a young high school, kid just signing up out of high school and going. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew exactly what all the arguments were. I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, which is a very liberal area of Arizona, which I'm not against liberals. I'm not against conservatives either. But Tucson is a very liberal bastion of Arizona. And so I grew up around a lot of my friends were very against the war, especially Iraq, and I don't want to disparage the Iraq war at all. And especially not the people that served there. They did some amazing things there. And I know there's a lot of Iraqis that were glad that we were there too, that we got rid of Saddam. I know that country has seen its fucking more than its share of a shitstorm since the Gulf War in 1990 and 1991. But I knew what I was signing up for. Point being, I had no illusions about what I was doing. I knew that I was joining the United States Army and the United States military, but I wanted to do more for the world, in my own small way, if possible. And on all three of my tours, I think I got the opportunity at various points to do that, and to give back to the world that gave me life. And, do something so that other people don't necessarily have to. There's people out there, like a lot of my friends were against the war. We don't have a draft anymore. It's an all-volunteer service. So by being an all-volunteer service, that means we don't have to have a draft. We're not conscripted. And a lot of my more liberal-minded friends probably would have not wanted to go into the military if they had been conscripted, right? Just like in Vietnam. You see the pictures of people burning their draft cards in Vietnam and shit. It would have been probably very similar in our lifetime if we had a conscription service or a draft. We don't have a draft because people volunteer. And I knew what I was signing up for when I signed up for it. And I wanted to go. And I'm glad and very thankful and fortunate that I got not one chance. I got 3 chances to go. And I did. And I'm lucky and fortunate that I came home. And I have a beautiful family. I've got a wonderful support system. My family loves me. I've got 2 beautiful children. I'm very lucky. And I think a lot of it is I live my life. I try to live my life as well as I possibly can because I know people that didn't make it home, and especially because I know people that made it home, but they ended up going out later, and that it hurts my heart, and so I live my life for them too, you know. So I've got these two bands that I wear every day. One of them has two names on it, and those are two people that I knew that died downrange. And the second one down here, the second one is for two people that I was close with that took their own lives. You know, because just because they didn't die downrange doesn't mean that the war didn't follow them home. You know what I mean? And that's yeah. So
yep.
Yeah.
We also got here Army Infantry Officer, First Lieutenant, excuse me if I mispronounce this, Igor Krasnanosenke.
Ooh, okay.
That's you know, I'm not Joe Rogan. I can't get these names right, but I think I did it pretty good. A platoon leader with the 7th Infantry Division's 4th Battalion, 2nd Stryker Brigade Combat Team. You just talked about this. What, last week you were just talking about that was place you almost went to?
Yeah, I was supposed to be part of that group right there.
Yeah.
Second.
He created the EIB Pro by teaching himself how to program through YouTube videos and other online resources while cooped up at home during the early months of the pandemic.
So this guy was on Reddit, and it's a news story right now, but he was on Reddit last year in the Army subreddit, and he was kind of hawking, and he was like, "Hey, I made an app for all you grunts out there that are trying to get your EIB. I got an app, and I made an app, and it's to help you study. Because like when you do the EIB, for those of you guys that are not familiar with the infantry, when you do the EIB, it's basically like a 2-week shit show, and it's like 2 weeks. It's like 2 weeks.
No joke, man.
Dude, it's like it's literally like it's 2 weeks of drinking from a fire hose. Like that is the only way I can describe it. Like the EIB is the actual EIB testing is over the course of 3 days. And it is literally like there's like 30 events, literally 30 events, and you have to get a go in every single event to get your EIB. And at the very end, you have to fucking do a 12-mile ruck march, and you have to do another event after you finish the 12-mile ruck march to get your EIB. And so this is no small thing. Like a lot of grunts make fun of the EIB, but I'm telling you right now, that EIB holds a special place, right? When I've only had the opportunity to do it once, and I still kick myself because they trained us very well, and I still kick myself that I didn't get it because that was the year to get it, right? And I didn't get it. It's hard. You only get 3 mistakes, which is to say you only get 2 mistakes. You can get 2 mistakes. When you make your 3rd mistake, you're out. Over 30 events, you have to get like a first time go. Like you have to pretty much get a first time go on everything. And if you've already made 2 mistakes. If you made 2 mistakes on your first 2 events, 1 mistake on each of your first 2 events, you have to go the entire rest of the way through without making any mistakes. And if you make no mistakes, they call it going true blue. If you make no mistakes all the way through, it's called, it's not easy. It is not fucking easy. So this lieutenant developed this app to help people study, because typically when you're in the field, when you're training, whatever, you're not studying for the EIB, right? So this guy made this app to help people study in their off time when they're not training for the EIB. Because during those 2 weeks, they train you in all these events, but it's like you go out at like 5 a.m. in full kit, and then you sit there and you take class after class after class after class for 2 weeks straight to prepare you for this event. And then those 3 days that you test, that's the actual event. First, you take a PT test. If you pass the PT test, then you go to the fucking land navigation course. If you pass land navigation course, then you go into the actual testing, and it's not easy. And it's if you earn that badge, good on you. And if there's somebody out there listening and you've got your EIB, I salute you, for having your EIB. You know what I mean? Like everybody pluses up the combat infantry badge and the combat action badge, because we've seen combat or whatever. I salute those of you that took the time out of your life to become a master of your craft, become a master of your MOS, and become an expert infantryman, right? I salute you for that, because it is not easy to get. And this lieutenant did a really cool thing by making that app. Like, because now you can study on your own time. You can study and you can know exactly what it says, because it's John. I know you're probably somewhat unfamiliar. Like, let's say we're doing like the M2 the M250 cal, right? The M2, the 50 cal. There's like a series of 20 things you have to do on the M2. Okay, like you have to freaking take the weapon off safe, like charge the handle. By the way, you have to charge the handle a certain way, like so palms up, right? Charge the handle, make sure the weapon is clear. Push the weapon forward. Take your hand off. Put the weapon back on safe. Load around. Like it's all kind of like open the feed tray. Load around. Charge the handle. Close the feed tray. Charge the handle. Load your ghost round. Go forward. Charge the handle again. Load your actual round. Go forward. It's ridiculous. It's like 20, and that's for one event. Like, and you have to do those things in sequence.
Jesus Christ!
If you go out of sequence, you are no go at this station.
So
you are no go at this time.
So
like,
needless to say, the EIB is a pretty good bragging right.
Oh fuck yeah! Oh fuck.
Yeah, and sadly, and I hate elitism. I always have, but there are people who have a combat infantry badge that don't have an expert infantry badge, like myself.
Same.
There are people who have an expert infantry badge that don't have a combat infantry badge, and they constantly are talking shit to the other. Well, I actually did my job. You're like administrative infantry, like so it's
like corporate.
But just to give you an example, I had a buddy who was killing it. I do regret, as I was getting out of the Army, we were doing EIB testing at Drum, and I didn't go out for it because I was already doing my out processing paperwork, and I wish I would have, because I know I could have done it. But I was already fixated in getting out, and I was just like, fuck this, man. Like, I'm done. I deployed, I did my shit, I'm home, I'm getting out. And I had a buddy.
Oh, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
Buddy, and he was doing really, really well through all the events and all the different ones. And of all the shit that he was a no-go at, he was doing the radio bit, and he said, and he said 5 instead of Fife.
Fife.
And he lost out on the EIB because of fucking Fife.
Yep, you will. And
it was a no-go at the station.
I'm sorry, you are no-go at this time.
That's why the E stands for
Expert.
I obviously I never went for an EIB, but I did go for one badge. Was it like the German? It was like the German.
Oh, the German PT badge.
Yeah. So
the GAFB? Yeah.
I attempted it, and I got to give it to my NCO at the time, Sergeant Sally, because he really believed in me. He really believed in my swimming abilities. I don't know why, and he told me how it was. He was like, "Oh yeah, you're just gonna, you're gonna go with your ACUs, and you're gonna try not to drown." Exactly how he put it. He goes, just get in there. You're gonna do some scissor swims, dog paddles, whatever. He goes, just go ahead and do it. I'm like, all right, great, too easy. I got this. Let's do this. I almost fucking drowned. I've never swam with my clothes on before, so that was kind of a new thing for me. But I will never forget how hard I was struggling to swim with my uniform on. A small pool, a regular, just a regular fucking swimming pool. It wasn't no Olympic size shit. So it goes to show, badge hard.
If it makes you feel any better, I got the GAFB, and I got it in gold. Just for you. Woo. Just for you. So there's for those of you guys who don't know, of the German PT badge, there's 3 levels. You have gold, silver, and bronze. And when I was at Fort Leonard Wood, when I was still a mechanic, our company commander happened to be good friends with a German liaison. He was a German sergeant major. And so our company got to do the GAFB.
That's cool.
And I got gold. I like gold.
Never heard of it before.
Well, there's two German badges that are kind of prestigious, I guess, and it's the PT badge, obviously, and the Schützenschnur, which is a weapons qualification. That one also comes in gold, silver, and bronze. And the big joke in the Army is that silver looks better with our uniforms. And my response to that is the only people that say that are the people that didn't get
That's right.
gold.
And incidentally, that's the kind of the back and forth between EIB and CIB. Is like
Exactly
the
right.
bitter about the shit is the ones that didn't get the other one.
That's correct. That
And
is
then
correct.
there's always that silent group that has both that are like,
That's my buddy. That's my buddy Ronnie J. So that year I told you the one time I've done EIB, my buddy Ronnie J. He got his EIB, and then when we deployed the year after, we got our CIBs, and they're actually talking. It hasn't become a thing yet, but they're talking about combining the two. Where if you have both, they will call it the Master Infantryman's Badge.
Oh, baby.
And
I think that's great.
and
I
they
like that.
so you know how like the CIB has like the silver wreath around it, and the EIB is just the square, the rectangle with the you go. They would make the only change the only change would be the wreath would be in gold. That'd be the only change.
That's nice.
And that would be,
That's a fucking fantastic idea.
yeah, absolutely. I totally down with that because it is
You deserve that. I mean, if we're talking, candy.
well, because you can only wear one. As per Army regulation, you can wear one or you can wear the other. You can't wear both at the same time. So
And
if
why
you have
not?
both, though,
Because you can have airborne wings and you can have master jump wings and all that shit. But if you jump in combat, you get the little
mustard stain. Yep.
or the gold star.
Yeah,
So why not be able, as an infantryman, to distinguish yourself above and beyond, which is the whole point of infantry. It's the whole point of the expert infantry badge is to say,
that's why we get to wear a fucking blue cord.
but I did it at a high level.
That's exactly why we get a blue cord. That's why we get the blue discs. That's why we get the blue discs around our shit on our fucking lapel. You know what I mean? On our collar, excuse me. Like, that's exactly why. And you're right. Like, and they deserve it. So, and by the way, the expert infantry badge has been a thing for a long time. They are now doing the expert soldier badge. It's the ESB for all other MOSs now. And
That's
so
awesome.
like prior to a couple years ago, it was just infantry and medics got a chance to do like an expert badge, basically. Now the entire Army.
Also a combat version. Same. Combat infantry. Yeah.
Yep. And now the entire Army has that. With the global war on terrorism, the Army realized that it's not just one MOS or another MOS that are out there seeing shit all the time. So it's good that these soldiers are having the opportunity to do these things and become experts at their craft and become experts at basic soldiering. Is really what it comes down to. It's basic soldiering. But if you're an expert at the basics, how much better are you when you climb the ranks? How much better of a leader will you be when your soldier says, "Sergeant, how do I load this radio?"
Yeah.
Sergeant, how do I take apart this 240 Bravo? Sergeant, whatever. And you can show them because you're a fucking expert, right? Like, So like that's the whole point of it, really.
That's always been the one thing I loved about the military. That there's
Should I
always
marry this barracks chick?
What? Do what?
I said, Sergeant, should I marry this barracks chick?
Hey, I don't know about you, Sean, but I got my mountain tab, bro. So I didn't marry her though.
Hang on, John. Say what you're going to say. I'm going to grab something to do some show and tell real quick. I'll be right back in like 10 seconds.
Ooh, I'm excited to see this.
So you got, John.
The one thing that I've always loved about the military is that there's no excuse and there's always an opportunity to learn more.
Absolutely.
I mean,
that is correct.
I mean, we'll say outside of quartermasters, because I know a lot of quartermasters like myself, we're always on the job most of the time.
Right.
But for people outside of that, 42 alphas, your regular paper pushers who are done with their days at 12 in the afternoon sometimes,
right.
They have the time to learn, and the military gives you the time to take the opportunity to do more. Go.
Yep.
Go to the gym for 45 minutes and get your PT good. Go to the gym. It's fucking free.
Right. Right.
The gym is free. The library's free. You know,
Right.
they give you all.
Go do some college courses. Go sign up for some college courses. Go do some correspondence. You know, whatever. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and
Exactly
I
right.
think this is a great thing that he made the EIB Pro.
Absolutely.
And he even says it too. You
Because
know,
now, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He
Go
even
ahead.
says that him and so many people agree with the fact that the book is so small and easy to lose or get destroyed. You know, get the app.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have like at least like 2 or 3 EIB books like somewhere in my garage closet right now, buried somewhere in a bag. You know, I'm pretty sure I have at least 1 or 2 EIB books floating around somewhere. You know, from a long time ago. So yeah.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
At an antique store.
Oh shit.
Oh
This-
wow!
It's the original combat infantry badge.
Where did you fucking find that?
In world, it was at a place maybe in the 2 towns over from me at an antique store.
Shut
And this
the fuck up.
European theater, and the combat infantry badge came out in World War II. This is a World War II jacket with the original. I mean, it's worn. I know it's legit because this shit is made of a different material than the stuff they gave us.
Yep.
And it's beautiful, man. And
That is amazing.
you see, like I think that's the social. I'm not really sure. It's kind of
No, that would be his service number.
yeah.
Oh no. That's probably just initials. That's probably just initials.
Just to give you a little bit of like frame of reference, would fit on a 12-year-old. It's that small.
I was gonna say it's small.
I wouldn't
yeah.
be able to fit my arms in like a T-Rex in this thing. It's that fucking small. But
Yeah, put that in a shadow box.
so look at these tabs, man. Look how worn they are.
Yeah.
Wow.
And see, that was before, and in World War II, that was before they gave us the blue discs and the blue cord. So they had the combat infantry badge, but they didn't have a blue cord at the time. The blue cord didn't come out till the 1950s.
That is so cool, man.
And
Yeah,
that
so
rank,
it says like J2 and then 7.14. I don't know. Maybe that's a date. Maybe I don't know.
possibly. Yeah, I mean that's a private second class PV2.
Yep.
PV2. That's good shit, Sean. That's badass, dude.
Yep. And for our last main event story, he mentored decades of Army Rangers. At 94, he will receive the Medal of Honor. Retired Colonel Ralph Puckett will become one of the most highly decorated soldiers in U.S. history.
Fuck yes. Tell us about what he did. Does it tell about his action?
Yeah, actually, there is a very nice little story here. Shivering in freezing temperatures, about 50 U.S. soldiers braced for the worst. Hundreds of Chinese soldiers were about to launch a series of bloody attacks on the hill the Americans had just taken under fire, and no reinforcements were within a mile. The clash that then First Lieutenant Ralph Puckett and his soldiers experienced that night on Hill 205 came at the outset of the Battle of Changchan River, a pivotal moment in which senior U.S. commanders were surprised by China's full-scale entry into the Korean War. It says thousands of U.S. soldiers died in the following days as they withdrew hundreds of miles back into South Korea in what the Army now describes as the longest retreat in U.S. military history. Puckett, who commanded the 8th Army Ranger Company, was wounded by a hand grenade in the first attack on the hill on November 25th, but stayed in command. American and South Korean soldiers absorbed 5 more chaotic armed assaults through the night before Puckett ordered his soldiers to withdraw the following morning as the Chinese threatened to overrun them. It says here that he was already wounded 3 times, and he was lying there in his foxhole unable to do anything. I could see 3 Chinese about 15 yards away from me, and they were bayoneting or shooting some of my wounded Rangers who were in foxhole. More than 70 years later, Puckett, who is 94 now, will receive the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor in combat. For his actions, President Biden called Puckett at his home in Columbus, Georgia. Oh, actually, that's where Fort Benning is.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
That's Fort Benning.
Yep, that's right.
That's home of the infantry.
Yes.
Home of the infantry. If you guys don't know, I like to change my backdrops once in a while. What you see behind me is the National Infantry Museum. It's on Fort Benning, Georgia, but it is open to the public. If you guys ever find yourself down south in Georgia, make a little side trip if you can, and go check that infantry museum out. It is hallowed ground for us. I did it. I've been there twice. I went once when I reclassed, and I went once again when I was going to ALC before I picked up the rank of staff sergeant. And this place you see behind me is, I get chills, and I got tears in my eyes both times walking in there because of how proud I was, just being part of that club. Just being part of that club, means that much. And if you ever get a chance, go check out the National Infantry Museum in Columbus, Georgia. Yeah.
And like just reading more of this, I'm getting more chills down my spine because the Army credits Puckett with leading his soldiers across an open field to take the hill under intense fire, braving enemy fire repeatedly to check on his soldiers after he was wounded the first time, and directing danger-close artillery strikes near his own position to ward off advancing soldiers. Now this is what gave me chills down my spine, because it really goes to show color doesn't exist, rank doesn't exist, none of that shit exists. Puckett has said he told his soldiers to leave him behind after he was anticipated, but 2 private first class, Billy Walls and David Paula, carried him to safety.
That's privates. Privates doing the right thing.
And that man is still alive today, about to receive the Medal of Honor.
And that I'll tell you what, it's all when you're downrange, it's only about the people to your left and to your right.
Let me tell you something, guys. Like, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for a situation like that. My grandfather was in the Battle of Luzon in the Pacific Theater, and he got shot a number of times. He got machine gunned across the back.
Ooh.
And warfare then was a lot more brutal than it is for us soldiers these days. In the wars that we've been in for the past 30, 40 years or whatever. But it was casualties everywhere, and they didn't really have the time to, medic, no air vacs, none of that shit. And so my granddad, he just laid there until the battle was over, and then they would send a truck around to try to see who was worth picking up, putting on the truck, and who they just needed to leave. And so when they came to my granddad, they were going to leave him. It just so happens on the truck was somebody from the same little tiny fucking town in Virginia who knew my granddad. And he goes, "No, that's Ellis Dalton. Put him on the truck. Put him on the truck." And they put him on the truck, and he lived. And he came home and met my grandma.
Holy shit.
That's fucking beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yep. Just like that.
It's crazy how the universe works, man. That's so to be able to take a shot like that, and we're not talking about 5.56s or 7.62s. We're not talking. We're talking a fucking machine gun here.
Machine gun, yeah.
It's a badass. Yeah. It's a badass, man. It's a badass.
Yeah. He came home and he farmed and went to church and was a school bus driver.
Oh yeah, that's fucking badass. I love it.
That's crazy, man. And to add on to this man's story, wow. He has earned the Distinguished Service Cross.
That's right below the Medal of Honor for anybody that doesn't know.
Says the nation's second highest award for valor for his action in the battle. The recognition came near the outset of a 22-year career that also included a second Distinguished Service Cross, two silver stars for valor in Vietnam.
Oh, fuck!
And he was awarded 5 Purple Hearts for injuries suffered in combat and 2 Bronze Star medals with the V device for valor.
Holy fuck, dude! So the dude's like fucking Audie Murphy.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
oh my god, dude!
With an upgrade,
he's a fucking ranger. He's a motherfucking ranger.
With an upgrade to the Medal of Honor, he will be one of the most highly decorated service members for valor in the U.S. military.
By far.
Yeah.
Probably only succeeded by fucking Audie Murphy.
Yep.
Audie Murphy's probably the only one that's fucking above that.
Yep.
Like, Jesus.
What a hard fuck, man. What a hard fuck.
Yep.
Dude.
Among those assisted in Puckett's case, the late Senator John McCain, who contacted the Army on Puckett's behalf a few months before dying, and retired General Joseph Vodel and Stanley McChrystal, who know Puckett through their mutual service as Rangers. So,
as Rangers lead the fucking way.
Yes, they fucking do. Let me tell you, man. You hear you hear these, like you hear these stories of your grandfather, you know, Colonel Puckett, these, and so many of them are still alive to tell their fucking story, and even though, the story doesn't want to be told all the time, when the story is told, when the time is right, it's, it's, you can't make that shit up. You can't write a book about it. You can't make a movie about it. You can,
if you're lucky, you might be sitting in a local watering hole, and you might have had a couple of beers with a guy, and if you're lucky, they'll open up a little bit and they'll tell you a little bit about it. It took my grandpa, somewhat similar story to Sean's actually. It took my grandpa. My grandpa is a Silver Star recipient from World War II. He was also in the Pacific Theater,
cool.
And I remember I found out he got a Silver Star when I was in the 2nd grade because we were doing some little project at school, and I remember calling my grandpa on the phone and asking him questions about the war. And he told me, I asked him if he had any awards, and he said, I have a Silver Star. Now I'm in 2nd grade. I don't know what the fuck a Silver Star is, right? Well, as I got older, being me, I fucking do my research, and I realized that this is like the 3rd highest award for valor in the U.S. military. And so I started asking him, like, you're about 8 years old in 2nd grade. I started asking him, like, year after year, like, Grandpa, what happened? Grandpa, well, finally, when I was like 15 or 16, they were out in Arizona from Missouri for Christmas. They came out for Christmas every year, and he sat me down in our little, I guess, family room or living room, and had my grandma next to him, and he told me what happened, that he got the Silver Star for. But it took him that many years. But now, like, I remember after he passed away a few years ago. After he passed, my grandma doesn't even remember what he did or what he had said that night, and I remember all of it. And it's one of those things where he had never told my grandma that. So when she was sitting in that room with us, she had never heard that story before. And it took me badgering the fuck out of my grandpa to get that story out of him, right? And that's why we've talked about this before on here, where I know our generation is a little bit different. We're not every generation is a little bit different, right? Like every succeeding generation is a little bit different, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make us better or worse. It just, every generation is a little bit different. We grew up a little bit different than the one before, right? And our generation of warfighters, we are because of how outspoken we are and because of how we grew up, we are doing such a great disservice, not only to our fellow warfighters, but to our civilian counterparts, by not sharing our experiences, by not sharing our stories. And I'm not just talking about the people that went to Afghanistan, went to Iraq, went to Syria. I'm talking about people that just served, period. Yeah. We're doing a great disservice by not sharing our stories and allowing our civilian counterparts to experience with us what it is like to serve, especially to volunteer to serve, to willingly sign your name on a dotted line that says, I am writing a blank check to the United States of America up to and including my life, and whatever that entails and whatever happens in between. Whether I deploy 10,000 times to Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria, whether I spend my entire career in garrison and never fucking deploy, there is no shame in that. There's no shame in any of it. And we're doing a disservice by not sharing our stories and by not giving more back to our civilian counterparts, so that they understand the cost, they understand the sacrifice, they understand like what it really truly entails. I know it's May now, it's May the 2nd. So here in a few weeks, it's going to be Memorial Day again, right? The unofficial beginning of summer, right? And I know that's a really hard day for a lot of people. I talked earlier about the bracelets that I wear every day. But Memorial Day is also a day of reflection, and I want my civilian counterparts to have a good day on Memorial Day. I want them to fucking barbecue. I want them to fucking drink beer. I want them to celebrate the unofficial beginning of summer, because that's exactly why I signed up. That's exactly why I signed up, so that you didn't fucking have to. I can take it, and we definitely took it. All of us took it. I'll take that fucking round for you. You drink your fucking beer. You barbecue your fucking steak and your ribs. Have a goddamn good time. Party for me. Party for us. And especially fucking party for the people that fucking aren't here anymore. Because we're still alive. We owe it to our fallen to fucking live good lives, because we know in our heart of hearts, if we were fucking sitting there crying in our beer every fucking night, they'd fucking sit down on that fucking stool next to us and say, quit being a fucking pussy. Get your fucking balls. They fucking fell off over there. Fucking pick your balls up, put them back on, and start living your fucking life.
Harden the fuck up.
Harden the fuck up. Harden the fuck up. Period.
Sew them up if you have to. The pain will only make you stronger.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Jesus hates a pussy, dude.
Yes, he does.
Jesus hates a pussy.
And hey, we're here now. At the end, this is.
I think it's Sean's turn today. I think it's Sean.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Dude, final thought, dude. It's your turn.
so as you see on the screen there, the suicide prevention hotline is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 8255. So, right? Yeah, 255. I had eye surgery. I'm just rechecking because I'm not used to not being blind.
me too. Me too, actually.
So it's a scourge amongst veterans. It's a scourge amongst humanity, but this is a veterans podcast. And so forgive us for being indulgent. We care about our people, and we don't want our people to feel like they're alone. And that is the problem. The problem is this misconception that you have nobody. Don't feel like you don't have nobody. You can reach out. It's okay. You know, you're not weak. Everybody has the moments where they're down, especially if you struggle with depression. There are those among us who have always been depressed, you know, because kind of like the hallmark of depression typically is people who get into service type of jobs, whether it be fields working with disabilities or service as far as like food service or customer service or military service. So it's up to us to recognize where we are. I mean, that the acknowledgement, to be able to acknowledge what's happening is like the biggest first step that you can make to making a change. Where we go wrong is the deflection and the like electricity, finding the path of least resistance. You know, don't find the path of least resistance, because that typically is drugs and alcohol or just self-destructive behavior, specifically relationships, and more specifically relationships that mean the most to us, because that hurts us the most. We know what we're doing, whether we can acknowledge it or not. So if you can acknowledge that, you know what, I'm in a fucking depression right now, and if I don't fucking stop, I'm going to undermine everything that I've got that's good for me in this life. And when you do that, when you do undermine everything that's good for you in this life, sometimes what looks to be the only obvious answer is to end that life, to take it from yourself, to take it from your loved ones who actually do love you, and they're hurt. And they're probably pissed at you because you're being an asshole, or because you won't stop drinking, or because you won't stop doing X, whatever X might be. We rob ourselves and we rob our loved ones of us. Well, we are people who took the time to serve our country and make a difference. And that is significant. Your service, no matter how it went or how it ended, was significant. Your life is significant. Your family and your children or your wife or your husband, like, you play a significant role in their life, and the absence of you won't make it better. That you might think it does. You might think they're better off without me. They're not. They're really not. What they're better off with is the best version of you that you can provide. And you're only going to get from where you are now to the best version of you if you can say, all right, what do I know? I know I'm in a bad spot, and I know I got to get out of this bad spot. So reach out, take a breath, step back from your vices, give yourself a moment, and take your first little tiny step, and then take another little tiny step, and before you know it, you're out of that spot. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a grind, and you may not recover some of those relationships that you've undermined, but there will be future relationships. I promise you. There'll be a future girlfriend or a future husband or wife. Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance. Bet on you. Invest in yourself. Because when you do that, you create that better version of you that will draw these new relationships, that will draw more success in your life. Fucking do it, man. And call the number. Call your homies. I've got like maybe 2 people left that I'm in contact with that I was in the service with. So I have a whole lot of people to contact. Those 2 or so people, they would have no problem answering my call. No problem at all. But even if you don't have anybody, there are those lines, and there are people who volunteer to answer that phone who actually give a fuck about you and don't even know who the fuck you are. They don't know who the fuck you are. They don't care who the fuck you are. They just know that you need help, and they're willing to help somebody not die. So at the least, you've got that number. What is it again? 1-800-273-TALK. Be brutal. Be brutally honest. Say, like, I fucking want to off myself in the most painful, gory, disgusting way ever, and I hope everybody finds my body. If that's how you're feeling and that's where you're at, fucking call and talk to that person and tell them straight up, because getting that stuff out, hearing yourself say those words, might be the thing that puts you over that hump.
Yep. And if you have the resources available to you, I've said it before here. I've been seeing a therapist for about the last 2 years now. If you have resources available to you, go talk to somebody. It has helped me immensely. I was in a bad place a couple years ago, not necessarily suicide wise, but I needed something extra. I needed something more. I knew there was a lot of things wrong in my life, and something had to change. And I went to, in the Army, we call it behavioral health. I went to behavioral health, and I said, I need to fucking talk to somebody, and I need to talk to somebody like fucking yesterday. And so I went through the Army process, and I got a really good therapist, and she had to retire. She was on her way out, but I saw her for about 2 years, and I just saw my new therapist for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I'm seeing my new therapist again on Tuesday. So 2 days from now, I will be in an appointment at fucking 9:00 in the morning at Fort Carson, Colorado, talking to a therapist, my second therapist in 2 years, because I need to talk to somebody. It's okay to talk, guys. It's okay to talk. Get it out. Let it out. It's okay to let that shit out. The world gets really, really fucking heavy, and there's people out there that are going to take some weight out of your rucksack, and they're going to put it in theirs, and they're going to carry it for you. And I know this podcast, I know between John and Sean and me, believe it or not, if you're listening, this podcast is like the 3 of us taking weight out of each other's rucksack. This podcast is very cathartic for us. We do this kind of for our own reasons, but we also do it because internally, I know all 3 of us kind of need it. And that's the whole reason we started DD214 Gaming. And when DD214 Gaming took off last year, that's why we kept it going. That's why we kept going hard with it. And we decided to start doing this podcast, was because it was cathartic. There's a lot of people out there hurting, and we know you guys hurt because we hurt in the same fucking ways you guys do. But we're doing something about it. We're being proactive about maintaining our health and maintaining specifically our mental health. But we'll have another podcast where we can talk about physical health, right? And we can talk about getting rid of some bad habits. Let's talk about bad habits, right? Let's talk about bad habits. But that's fucking spot on, Sean.
All right.
That was beautiful. Well, thank you, everybody. See you next week for Mother's Day.
Oh, shit. Is it Mother? Oh, shit. Fuck.
He just sold himself out on the show live.
Good thing my mom doesn't watch like yours, dude.
This is true. Well, so long.